Hey everybody, Aaron Spears here, young adult librarian at the Westlake Porter Public Library. February is Black History Month, where we shine a spotlight on the many cultural contributions that African Americans have made within the society as a whole and this country as a whole as well. Within the library, though, we wanted to focus in on authors. Now, there are huge books that have transcended the young adult publishing world, like The Hate You Give or Long Way Down or Dear Martin, books that have gone on to wider success with the general public. I wanted to focus in today with a book talk celebrating some African American authors within the realm, within the world of young adult publishing that maybe don't get singled out as much or get as much focus as I think they should. So we're going to highlight some authors and their books today. But I wanted to go away from realistic fiction, which we'll get to in a separate video, and I wanted to go for more escapist entertainment. We could all use escape from the real world from time to time to kind of get our bearings and enjoy just a great flight of fancy, a great story. And so that's what I wanted to do in this video. I wanted to focus in on some amazing contributions that African American authors have made in the world of young adult publishing, but specifically within the genre of fantasy. So let's jump in and take a look at some very recent amazing books and series in a lot of cases that African American authors have created, these amazing, huge fantasy worlds that we can all escape into for a great read and a great story. First up is Kingdom of Souls by Rena Barron. This is a story of a teenage girl, Ara. She is ashamed of her lack of magic, and she must step up to discover the evils that are actually at work within her kingdom. So she's heir to two lines of powerful witch doctors. Ara yearns for magic of her own. She fails at bone magic, she fails to call upon her ancestors, and she fails to live up to her family's legacy. So under the disapproving eye of her mother, who is the kingdom's most powerful priestess and seer, Ara fears she may never be good enough. When the kingdom's children start to disappear, what seems like a kidnapping, Ara is desperate enough to turn to a forbidden, dangerous ritual. So if she has no magic of her own, she'll have to buy it by trading away years of her own life. So with this borrowed power she now has, she ends up revealing a nightmarish betrayal, and on its heels, a rising tide of darkness that threatens to consume her and all of those who she loves. So she must race against time to unravel this twisting, deadly scheme. It really propels the narrative forward in a really compelling and fascinating way. This is a very richly imagined world, and it's inspired by tales of like voodoo and cult magic, or folk magic, really. Rena Barron's this is her debut novel, and it's a very captivating, thrilling kind of mystery hybrid within a very intense and well-developed fantasy world. Up next, we have Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. Justina Ireland is also already a pretty well-known author. This is her foray into an alternative American history fantasy story. That's kind of a mouthful, so here's the basic overview of this particular novel. Jane McKean was born 2 days before the dead began to walk the battlefields of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So we can already see kind of the alternative history that Justina Ireland is playing with here. So obviously the zombies rising and the dead starting to walk from the battlefield, this derails the war between the states and changes the nation forever. So in this new America, safety for all depends on the work of a few, and they start passing new laws like the Native and Negro Education Act, which require certain children to attend combat schools to learn to put down the dead. And this is where Jane does. She enrolls in a program in a school to become an attendant, which is someone who's trained in both weaponry and etiquette to protect the well-to-do. So Jane is actually the daughter of a wealthy white Southern woman, and even her mom then, could not save her from society's expectations because the color of Jane's skin. So, but that's not exactly the life, all that Jane wants out of life. So she's almost finished with her education at Miss Preston's School of Combat in Baltimore. Jane is set on returning to her Kentucky home and doesn't pay much mind to the politics of the eastern cities with their talk of returning America to the glory days before the dead rose. But when families around Baltimore begin to go missing, Jane is caught up in the middle of a conspiracy, one that finds her in a desperate fight for her life against some of the most powerful enemies within the country. Also, there's the Restless Dead that are still out there that provide threats at every corner. So you've got, some racial politics going on, but you also have zombies going on, and you also have a fantasy world of a new direction for American history that is not in any of the history books, but does play into some of the things that are in the history books. Plus, the benefit of jumping in and reading Dread Nation, besides just being a compelling and really interesting and fascinating read, is you get a sequel. So if you do enjoy Dread Nation, you can hop right into Deathless Divide, also by Justina Ireland. This is her official sequel to Dread Nation. So in this sequel, we follow Jane McKean again. This is after the fall of Summerland. She's hoped that her life would get a little bit simpler, go out of town, stay away, head west to California to find her mother. But nothing is easy when, you're a girl like Jane, who is trained to put down the restless dead, and she also experiences devastating loss on the road to a protected village called Nicodermus. This has Jane just questioning everything she thought she knew about surviving this alternate fantasy history of 1880s America. What's more, the safe haven is not what it appears to be. So Jane discovers that when she sees familiar faces from Summerland amid this new society, she ends up being caught between mysteries, lies, the undead, her own inner demons. Jane soon finds herself on a dark path of blood and violence that is threatening to consume her. But in this sequel, she is not alone in this journey. She has another character come in here. This is Catherine Devereux. She never expected to be allied with Jane, but after the hell that they've endured, she knows friends are hard to come by and that Jane needs her too, whether Jane wants to admit it or not. So they have this really good antagonistic but still friendship bond that they have together as they're working together for a common goal. So Catherine is watching Jane's back, Jane's watching Catherine's back. However, it is more than she bargained for, and when they both reach a breaking point, it's up to Catherine to keep hope alive, even as she begins to fear that there's just no happy ending in sight for girls like her. Next up, we have the novel Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. This takes us out of kind of an old school fantasy and places us in a much more modern context, but still within a fantasy world. So in this world, there are no more monsters anymore, or so the children of the city of Lucille are taught. With doting parents and a best friend named Redemption, our main character here, Jam, has grown up with this lesson all her life. But when she meets Pet, who is a creature made of horns and colors and claws, Pet emerges from one of her mother's paintings, and a drop of Jam's blood, she must reconsider what she's been told. So now Jam is being confronted with the reality of, maybe the adults in my society haven't really been telling me the truth. So Pet's quest, Pet has come to hunt a monster, and the shadow of something grim lurks in Redemption's house, Jam's friend. So now Jam must find not only a way to protect her best friend, but also to uncover this truth and answer the question, how do you save a world from monsters if no one will admit they exist? So what Emezi as an author is doing here is providing young adults or anybody that reads the book with the idea of what choices can a young person make when the adults that are around them are in denial of some basic facts. Very timely book, very interesting kind of allegorical and fantasy read that addresses a lot of things that are going on in modern society. This book was also a finalist for the 2019 National Book Award for Young People's Literature and a Lambda Literary Award nominee. Next up, we have Children of Blood and Bone by Tommy Adeyemi. In this book, we follow the main character, Zeli Adebola, as she has adventures within the magical realm of Orisha. So Zeli remembers when the soil of Orisha hummed with magic. Burners ignited flames, tiders beckoned waves, and Zeli's Reaper mother summoned forth souls. This is very deep world-building fantasy. But everything changes the night magic disappeared. Under the orders of a ruthless king, Magi were killed, leaving Zeli without a mother and her people without any kind of hope. So now Zeli has one chance to bring back magic and make a strike against the monarchy, which is in control of Orisha. With the help of a rogue princess, Zeli must outwit and outrun the crown prince, who is hell-bent on eradicating magic for good. So obviously for Zeli, danger lurks everywhere in Orisha, yet the greatest danger may be Zeli herself, as she struggles to control her growing powers and her growing feelings for the enemy. Children of Blood and Bone was an almost immediate New York Times bestseller when it came out, and since it was such a hit and the readers just loved this book, Tommy Adeyemi wrote a sequel, which is now part of the Legacy of Orisha series. So there's volume 1, which is Children of Blood and Bone, and then most recently we have Children of Virtue and Vengeance. So after battling the impossible, Zeli and Amari have finally succeeded in bringing magic back to the land of Orisha. But the ritual was more powerful than they could have imagined, reigniting the powers of not only the Magi, but of nobles with magic ancestry as well. So now, Zeli struggles to unite the Magi in an Orisha where the enemy is just as powerful as they are. And how do you manage that? But when the monarchy and the military unite to keep control of Orisha, Zeli must fight to secure Amari's right to the throne and to protect the new Magi from the monarchy's wrath as well, especially with, like, equal power being shared by protagonist and antagonist in this story. With civil war looming on the horizon, Zeli finds herself at a breaking point, and she must discover a way to bring the kingdom together, or she's going to watch her beloved Orisha tear itself apart. All right, so those are some of the recommendations within the genre of fantasy in the young adult publishing world. I hope some of those piqued your interest. If they did, check out the links below this video to place some holds or to request any of those items. As I mentioned in the video, some of them are parts of series, so I've listed all of the series and other books as well down below me in the comments. So go ahead and grab some of those books.